An army of Laxarian soldiers stood at the gates, a whole battalion of Armabella around them. As Shima had predicted, Icebat's forces had gathered for their group. The aged heads of the Collegiate for once in the front line, their judges, prosecutors, and executioners. The court was held in the open air. They, the accused, without right of defense or pardon, without raison d'etre.
Only the death penalty does justice to their offenses,
spoke one of the prosecutors, and found broad agreement among his peers.
I ask for silence,
said Geoffroy. Visibly it was costing him substance which he was lacking at the moment. Squeaky for having recently taken an arm off.
I ask my brethren of the order for a brief moment to introspect, and ask themselves how a scholar of Icebat would approach the situation. I am in favor of keeping the girl alive, as well as the daughter of Tamodenti.
Are you still in your right mind, Eminence? Her shell harbors an abomination. In the name of Icebat, she must be banished,
objected the priest of the Collegiate.
She has not only endangered your life, but the one of all members of our council.
This experienced the consolation of the other judges, equally witnesses of this court.
She has conspired against us with traitors and Tordian rebels, and you now wish to spare the monster? In the face of Icebat, does it not make you a co-conspirator, Geov?
All on the Laxarian side listened up. The accusation was shifting too much in the direction of His Eminence. Geoffroy might still have wanted to save KLEIO from execution, but even with the weight of his voice, it could not be justified why she should be spared. Their cards were bad, and Geoffroy had no other ace up his sleeve that could be played. With a hand that was too bad for an all-in, the priest felt that his will was coming back into line with the Collegiate, and the time was ripe for the verdict.
I hereby vote that the traitors be executed on the spot, and that their heads be carried at the head of a parade throughout Kaltoin, under the banner of Icebat and the sign of his triumph. Who speaks for it besides me?
Their hands went up in unison. Geoffroy hesitated only briefly, was condemned from the director's chair to a minor role, and his hand went up. None of the doomed showed any reaction. The others might have come to terms with it before. After all, KLEIO did not want to accept the finality. In a row, they were lined up in front of the wall of the House Denti. A line of twice as many riflemen positioned themselves in front of them, commanded by Cruxbero 0410121008, who had the honor. Stumped in the face of helplessness, KLEIO looked at the soldiers. None questioned the verdict. Everyone took a stand against them, and awaited the order with blind obedience.
Shoot the heretics at last,
the priest of Icebat urged the soldiers. Between loaded weapons and unprotected bodies, there was nothing in this world that could ward off the hail of bullets from them. A significant part of the events had long since eluded not only KLEIO, but all parties. Namely, the moment before the Laxarians overpowered them. Shima had left while Brina was busy with the equipment, and she and Emery were securing the entrance. Her intuition sounded the alarm when Emery heard nothing from his people, and she lied about going to check upstairs. In fact, she had hidden a bit off to the side, near the flower beds. Fate had to will that the frequency of the Armabella should spare her, that no one should see her when the Laxarians stormed the corridor. After they passed with the prisoners, they left only 5 guards behind. Pathetic. Shima soon ventured out of her hiding place, neutralizing the troublemakers one by one, assassinating them silently like a cat of prey. Only the last prey recognized the danger, and in its final moment fired a shot at her, before her knife throw entered his forehead. She felt along her side, held her hand in front of her face, and surveyed the fresh red paint job.
Just hang in there a little longer, girl,
she said motivationally to herself.
If the curtain has to fall for you on the other side of the world, at least earn your applause.
In her training, she had encountered some Laxarian technology. Their haughtiness led the Laxarians to overlook the Tordian's device that Brina had attached underneath. All Shima had to do was push the button. She was fully aware that it could be the last performance in her role as an actress. The role she portrayed on the surface. Also, It might have been the last act she played in her true role, that of a secret agent. In secret, she helped decide world events.
Your broadcast is off,
She said, flipping the switch and turning off the jamming frequency. To the reality on the execution stand, there was no appreciable difference. Their heroic sacrifice would go down in the history of this world. They fulfilled their mission, found purpose, and fell for their calling. The deactivation of the invisible frequency might have had effects that were measurable with the appropriate instruments, but it did not make the doomed bulletproof. KLEIO closed her eyes, listening to the gunfire, bracing for the inevitable. She opened them tentatively, when what should have happened seconds earlier didn't arrive, that actually just took a fraction. Inconceivably, the atmosphere seemed as if divine providence had intervened in person. Someone had taken the remote control and put it on pause before the tragic climax, because she could not watch the injustice. Around them, time stood still. A swarm of bullets in the air, the controlled explosions of the rifles still flickering like glistening fireworks. Birds hovered rigidly in the sky. Even the wind held its breath. The whole world, except for KLEIO's group, slumbered motionlessly. Laws of nature suspended.
By Mithras, what's going on?
Asked Brina, not so much of her friends as of the power that had caused time to halt.
So you see this too then?
KLEIO wanted to reassure herself that it wasn't just in her head. Only for her and her companions did time continue on its usual course. She wondered whether this was due to her abilities, and whether it was a spontaneous outburst of emotion that caused it. The explanation came naturally when Emery spotted something in the sky.
What's that up there?
Neither bird nor airplane, and certainly no Superman. Spellbound, they stared at the only celestial body in motion. It was heading toward them like a missile, a supersonic explosive device. KLEIO realized that the projectile was actually a woman, and far more than that. A goddess among titans.
Hecate.
She proclaimed. Her voice trembled in awe before she, who bore the name, descended upon the Laxarian troops like an atomic bomb. As if by magic, merely with such a or similarly fantastic word could be explained. A protective wall was formed around KLEIO and her fellowship, as if the air hardened into armor. Their enemies were destroyed by the devastating shockwave of her impact, and everything immediately was engulfed by a furious cloud of dust. KLEIO and her companions cried out in panic before realizing that the destruction did them no harm. Undisturbed, they stood in the eye of the storm. Not a hair on their heads was harmed, while debris, dust, fire, lightning and sand, were hurled past them with the speed of a hurricane. The Laxarians in Keltoin went down in a mass extinction, wiped out with the force of an asteroid impact. When the fog cleared, she stood in the middle of the crater, this force of nature. The beautiful woman with white hair, of whom it was impossible to say how old she was. Now, KLEIO doubted that age mattered to her at all. She had come to her rescue, but the expression on her face revealed she was pissed off, and her tone of voice left no doubt about it.
What the hell are you doing?
She asked angrily. KLEIO felt addressed, while the Tordians fell to their knees before her.
Oh, chthonic goddess.
Brina spoke, about to begin a hymn of praise.
Silence.
Hecate abruptly interrupted her, which immediately silenced her worshippers. She looked sternly at KLEIO.
I asked what you were doing.
She was indeed meant, but what she was hinting at remained a mystery to her.
I am not doing anything.
KLEIO stammered meekly.
I was just about to be shot again.
The others, Brina in particular, looked at her in amazement, which either meant, you know her, or you get shot more often?
You don't understand me.
Hecate spoke as if she were giving up.
Do you even know what you've done here?
Half a laugh escaped her, one that stemmed less from joy than from sheer disbelief. She pointed her hands from the ground to the sky, in a dissolute movement in which she included everything. KLEIO could not tell what she was alluding to. She saw nothing but the devastation, and it certainly had not been her fault. All at once, a stray came out from behind Hecate, a brown, slightly skinny male with a long snout. He inspected the floating remains of a corpse, sniffed at it, lifted his leg, and left his mark. Up to this point, he seemed like a conventional dog, before he trotted leisurely to Hecate and suddenly spoke.
Well, don't be so hard on them.
KLEIO recognized the voice instantly.
Friedrich?
He affirmed, his eyes flashing crimson. Unexpectedly, Emery Cusalas fell on his knees before the talking mutt.
Oh, venerable dog Diamond, I would like to express my gratitude to you as well.
Friedrich behaved little worthy of reverence, rather exhibiting the animalistic side of his form. He licked a part of his body that was difficult to reach as a human.
Don't give the mutt too much credit.
Hecate said disparagingly, turning her eyes reproachfully to KLEIO.
He was just helping me find the troublemaker.
Now, can someone please explain to me what I am supposed to have done?
Demanded the accused. Having enough of the accusations,
You and I will talk on the way.
Hecate choked her off, not wanting to dwell on explanations.
It's time to say goodbye.
The war is not over yet.
Brina said.
I hoped I could continue to count on your support.
Hecate only frowned, looking immediately 200 years older.
I get a say in what I have to do, don't I?
Demanded KLEIO of her. In hubris, she rebelled against the being who, with a wave of her hand, stopped time and smashed into a city like a meteor. She just felt utterly patronized. KLEIO wanted to speak for herself, so she resolutely told Brina how she had decided.
You may count on my help if you want it. I mean, what happened to me in your house was pretty impressive, wasn't it? Maybe it can be used to create a weapon.
She waited for confirming words from Emery, and he nodded.
Yes, that was quite unusual.
Somehow, he sounded too unconvinced, maybe making the mental comparison with Hecate's performance.
That's exactly why you have to come with me.
The latter countered.
We have to do something about your problem before you do any more damage.
They speak the truth, children.
Friedrich reinforced. KLEIO knew it was true, only she didn't want to just abandon her new friends. Emery Cusalas took the floor.
After Brina persuaded me and my family to perform the ritual, and it didn't work for days, I had given up hope.
He paused mournfully. Otherwise, he preferred to remain in the background, and KLEIO assumed he blamed her for the loss he had suffered.
It was Father and Asta who would not give up and believed in Brina's decision, with everything they had.
It was their intention that helped me succeed in the ritual.
spoke Brina encouragingly, and clasped his shoulder. KLEIO read from this that he forgave her. Just,
Don't get me wrong, but we all imagined something more along her lines.
hesitantly, he raised his head to Hecate, this woman who was far more, who in one leap wiped out a battalion of Laxarians. He did not withstand her eye contact.
You certainly weren't what we hoped for, KLEIO.
Brina then confessed.
But you did what you could. In the end, our mission took the outcome we longed for. With a secret weapon like her, the war would be won within a week, though.
You could see her imagining the scenario of the remaining Laxarians perishing in her fire. Unlike Emery, she withstood Hecate's menacing gaze.
Out of the question.
The latter immediately refused, and again addressed KLEIO urgently.
Shoo now.
I didn't expect it any other way.
Brina replied regretfully.
It was worth a shot.
I liked you better when you were cowering before me, mortal. Be glad you were spared. I interfered in your affairs considerably more than I usually do. Because of her.
Her index finger pointed at KLEIO. She felt like a brat who had been caught in some kind of mischief. All that was missing was that she pulled her along by the ears. But she needed no such thing to realize that there was not much she could do for her companions in Narrated, except to stand in the way on the next battlefield, and put everyone involved in danger. The realization was held up to her like a mirror. It came with the question of why she then rebelled against it. Perhaps she had simply not wanted to look like a coward, now that she was proving her heroism. Abandoning them was for the good of all, they who seemed more familiar to her than what lay ahead. Inwardly, she had already sensed during Hecate's approach that she would soon leave this world behind, when she had just settled in. But whatever was to come could only be better than being shot. The farewell was harder than expected. From no one as much as from Brina, and her heart seemed to cling to her even more.
We will announce everywhere what happened today in this place. It was not merely a victory on the continent of Euplar, but a worldwide blow to the morale of the Laxarian oppressors.
She looked to the person responsible who had saved the day for them.
If it had been up to me, you might have taken more time to punish them. Death came upon them too quickly.
But it was in Hecate's nature to make short work of it, and her patience was already being tested.
Will I ever see you again?
Asked Brina KLEIO. She knew no answer to this, but opted for a sign of hope.
Honestly, I have no idea what will happen to me now. But you can always try with one of your rituals. Maybe I'll suddenly appear.
She forced a smile.
That would be nice. Maybe someday, when this is all over.
Brina replied. For the last time, they both noticed the attraction, a strange gravity inside their chests. Both considered a kiss which came unexpected, although inside it seemed inevitable, from the moment she had landed at their feet. This goddess. The kiss did not happen. Instead, it came to an embrace that fell to them all the more heartily for it. Brina let herself be carried away to a kiss on her cheek, and KLEIO felt her tears on her skin.
It's so crazy.
She spoke happily in her ear.
Fate has brought us you. Yet, the ritual was meant to call our creator.
KLEIO froze. Inwardly, she realized an outward truth long before it reached her mind. Was that it? Was this what she had done? Was that what Hecate's accusations amounted to? Suddenly, she turned pale as a ghost and almost lost her balance.
Did I create this world? With my thoughts?
What's wrong with you, KLEIO?
Asked Brina anxiously.
We should get going then,
Hecate interjected.
before her condition worsens.
I'm fine.
KLEIO reassured her, lying.
Just a little dizzy spell.
In fact, she felt sick.
But I've kept her waiting long enough.
She was about to touch Brina for the last time, when Hecate strode up and clasped her arm.
Come now.
She said impatiently, and they disappeared through a void in space. Stay tuned for weekly chapters. Like, share, and subscribe for more wacky adventures. We thank you for your support.